You're listening to What She Said, a podcast about blogging, creativity and life online, hosted by me, Lucy Lucraft, a freelance journalist and blogger based in Brighton. Hi Vicky, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Hi Lucy, good, thank you.
We've just done the fake hello, which I always do, which is always really weird. As if we haven't already been talking. For anybody that doesn't know who you are, do you want to introduce yourself and give us a little bit of detail on your blogging journey so far?
Okay. Hello, I'm Vicky. I have a travel blog at vickyflipfloptravels.com, which I've been doing for around 7 years now. And it's about travel in many different forms, and I focus on festivals around the world as well.
When did you always, because you've always been a travel and festival blogger, haven't you? Or, well, as far as I know.
Yeah, I think I have always been one, but it took a few years to identify as well. It took me.
When did you come out?
Yeah, I wrote about festivals quite a long time, and then I realised that it was quite a strong theme in my blog, and not many other people were doing that. So then I decided to come out and talk about how I talked about festivals a bit more and make it a bit of a niche for me.
Yeah. Would you say that is kind of one of the pillars of your success, that you were doing something, writing about something that nobody else was in what is a very saturated market?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. So when I talk to brands or talk to anyone, they're always interested about festivals, and a lot of people have, even if it's just one or two festivals, they're quite passionate about a festival, and destinations like to talk about their festivals, and I think individuals like to talk about their fun festival experiences, or they like to kind of challenge me really whether I've been to this festival they know. So it's a good topic of conversation for people, I think.
It's a good icebreaker.
Yeah.
And actually, you know what, from a brand collaboration point of view, that probably means that you could end up doing some really mad, like sheepy collaborations if you wanted to, or like potties and stuff, as well as all the glamorous stuff.
Oh, right, yeah. Yeah. I have been sent a lot of the sheepy shiwi things over the years. They're okay. I've used them before. They're all right.
I've never used one. I've always been all right with just squatting.
Yeah, it's a bit easier and less plastic.
Easier. Yeah, good point. I feel like when I went to India, I became a master at squatting. So ever since then, I've been all right with just doing that. I've got strong thighs for squatting.
Oh, that's good. It's nice everyone knows it.
Taking it back to when you first started blogging.
Yeah.
So 7 years ago, wow, 2011. So I was talking to Flora the Explorer yesterday, and we were saying this last year actually at Rotterdam, at the Rotterdam Traverse Conference. We were saying we feel like the old bloggers now, like as in the older generation of bloggers. When we started, it was so different. But even when we were having a conversation, Flora remembered things way differently to me. As in, we both went to the same conferences, but she was like, yeah, people didn't really know about SEO. And I was like, they definitely did.
I think that's what's interesting though. Everyone comes in from a different angle, and everyone has their own story or their own version of the same event. It's like blogging, really. I mean, you don't necessarily need another guide to Barcelona, but there's all these different bloggers with all their different views and their different experiences. And then if you find the blogger that you like, it's their guide to Barcelona that you're going to read. So everyone has a different version of the same event, don't they?
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's really encouraging actually for any new bloggers, because sometimes I do hear people say, like, it's intimidating, isn't it? Because one thing that, what I was kind of trying to get to was that when you started, how do you think the blogosphere has changed? Do you feel like it was easier for those of us starting, I don't know, very, very slick websites and pre-Squarespace, or do you think it's kind of the same but different?
Oh, I think it's so different. I've actually written a blog post about this.
Oh, brilliant. We'll link it.
On my blog. Yeah. Just about how different it is and has been in the last 7 years. So I think when I started, it was quite normal just to put up your thoughts and feelings and the odd picture, and then you would put it on Facebook and people would read it. And it didn't, I feel like back then it didn't have the same well, definitely didn't look like blogs do now, definitely didn't have the incredible photography and some of the videography that people have to go with their blogs. It was sort of, I guess you could say it was like more it was purer, but I don't know. I think everything's just changed, and the internet has changed so much in the last 7 years that, of course, blogging would have. I think the quality that we have now, especially when you think it's just from an individual, is just insane. Some people's, like the writing is amazing. It's like a guidebook, and then the photography and the video, it's just all incredible. Whereas 7 years ago, you could have like a 500-word blog post with a few pictures.
A few crappy pictures,
yeah, it was kind of okay. I mean, I only used my iPhone for pictures for like 3 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and like dodgy iPhone of days gone by as well. So, and it wasn't really, it was kind of what everyone was doing. I didn't stand out for being an iPhone person. Like, I think the quality has just got insane now. It's amazing.
I'm thinking about when you were saying that, I had Dave, Man vs. Globe in my head, because he has the most incredible travel blog. His writing is incredible. His photography is amazing. Like, it's all next level. And he does it part-time. How do people do that? So I've just been at WTM this week, and Steve Hanish, who has a blog, Backpacker Steve, his stuff is just amazing. And he did a talk, and one of my questions I asked him at the end was just how many hours a week does he work? And he said, he said 4 hours a day. So how do you make all these videos in 4 hours a day? Yeah, no,
I work a lot more than that.
Do you?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely do like my standard of 40 hours a week, but I'll do it in probably like less days. So I will work from like 8 a.m. to midnight a few days, and then maybe go off traveling. But then that is obviously still work as well. Yeah. I definitely don't do 4 hours a day.
But you're a full-time travel blogger, so yeah. And actually, you've led us on into something quite perfect. Firstly, I wanted to ask you, when did you go full-time? Because you did work. It wasn't Flight Centre that you worked for. Who did you work for before you went full-time?
So when I started travel blogging, I was working at Hostel Bookers. That was in 2011, and part of my job was trying to get bloggers to write about our hostels, which obviously now is called influencer outreach or blogger outreach, but we didn't really even have a name then. So that was when I first learned about travel bloggers and wanted to be one because it looked cool. And then, I continued working there. And then I went to work at gapyear.com, which, is part of Flight Centre. So I worked there for like a year and a half, and then left to pursue this full time.
When did you know? When did you know it was the right time to go full time?
Well, I think really, in hindsight, like I should have left a few months before, because at the time it felt like I was doing two full-time jobs. I was doing so much on my blog, and I was getting all these amazing opportunities that I couldn't do because I had this full-time job. But I was in a relationship, and so it was difficult and just wasn't right. But then that relationship ended, and pretty much as soon as I could, I handed in my notice and then left. Left full-time work because I knew that I kind of knew that I could make it work, and I also just wanted to go traveling. So I had savings, and so I just thought, oh well, if I can't make it work, then I've got these savings that we were meant to be using to buy a house, and so it'll all be okay. But it was fine, and so I still had those savings 4 years later when I went to buy the house that I have now. So it's good.
That's awesome. So yeah, of course, you settled down, didn't you? Well, I hate saying that word, actually, because, it's awful. There's so many negative connotations to that, but you are based in the UK now, aren't you? As opposed to being a digital nomad.
Yeah, I did that whole thing for three and a half years. And for most of it, I loved it. But as the blog got bigger, and as we were talking about earlier, as the quality of content has gone up across the travel blogging world, it takes so much time now to write a blog post and to do the photos and then do videos and to do all the admin as well, that I was just spending too much time working and like looking for Wi-Fi in all these fantastic locations that I wanted to be enjoying myself. So I wanted more of a divide. Like I wanted to either be sat in a home that was my home just working, or going off traveling. So I decided to just move back to England for a bit, and I just rented for a bit just to see how I liked it here and if that worked for me. And I think I just got, like, after 3.5 years of non-stop traveling, it is quite exhausting to try and balance everything, and like not knowing where you're going to get Wi-Fi is quite stressful when you depend on Wi-Fi for your business. So yeah, I decided to just move back for a bit and see if I liked it, and I did. So I stayed.
That's actually a bit of a topic that people don't always think about when they think digital nomad, and like they're in Bali or wherever, and it's so exciting. You can get up whenever you want, blah, blah, blah. But actually, I don't know, my experience of it, and I was traveling for about 3 years full time, was exactly that. It was the stress of, is there going to be Wi-Fi? Is the Wi-Fi going to be good enough? And also, this is really stupid, but if you're in a hot country and you're sat with your laptop all day on a sweaty, on like a sweaty bench, plastic bench or whatever in a cafe, it's just quite miserable. I remember thinking at that point, I just want to be in the cold.
Yeah. I totally agree with that.
It's just not as magical as people always think. I don't want to be a big whinge fest, and it's very privileged to be able to say that. But also, when it's your business, it's completely different, which leads us on quite nicely to talking about press trips, because you do, as a travel blogger, you do a lot of press trips. I guess that's probably a big bulk of your brand work. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. During the 3 years that I was traveling, I did, well, the first year I didn't do any press trips really, because I had kind of spent, so all the time that I was working at Hostel Bookers as a content editor, and all the time that I was at gapyear.com as a content and social media manager, I'd been hearing about all these amazing destinations, and I was writing about all these amazing places, but some of them I'd never actually even visited. So I had this long list of all these places that I wanted to go. So when I had like a 2-month notice period at work, so spent quite a bit of time like planning my trip, and probably shouldn't admit that. And so I had all these places I wanted to go. So I had quite a hectic year-long schedule of where I was going, and I was booking my flights, and it was kind of like a bit of a therapy, I guess, after the end of a relationship. So that first year was planned out. It was everywhere I always wanted to go. But during that year, I got a lot of press trip opportunities. And so the next year, I basically hopped press trip to press trip with whatever made sense in between. And it was amazing, because getting invited to all these incredible destinations after backpacking the year before, now I was staying in amazing hotels in amazing places with other inspirational bloggers and photographers. And so I love doing it. But then again, it relates back to what we were saying about the quality of travel blogging going up. So you go on a press trip and you get invited on a press trip, and to some it might seem like a free holiday, and a lot of my friends just think it's a free holiday, but it's really not, because if you're invited on a press trip and you're not being paid, there's obviously an understanding that you're going to take the photos, put it on your 5 or whatever it is social media channels, make the video and everything. And so you can go on a press trip, but then you could spend the next week or even 2 weeks writing about that press trip. And when you're on the press trip, there are so many live things now, especially with, well, back then it was the introduction of Snapchat, but now obviously it's Instagram stories. And so there's so many live ways to show off the press trip that you do want to do. And I love sharing my trips. I mean, that's what travel blogging is. But also it does take away from, it changes the trip. It just changes the way that you have a holiday. So recently I went to Greece with my family and barely looked at my phone, and it was just so nice. And I was like, this is what a holiday is. I think sometimes as a travel blogger you can forget, and it is exciting doing everything, but I think with a press trip there's a certain expectation of you, and it's just not a free holiday. What was the question? I feel like I just rambled.
No, it's brilliant. It was literally just about it was quite an open question, just that your experience of press trips and starting them quite early on into your travel blogging career. So from a practical point of view, when you said people were coming to you, was that because you'd already grown your kind of presence, or was it a case of because you'd been in the industry before, they knew who you were? Because I often think it's a lot about who you know, and not in a you have to be not in a kind of nepotism sort of way, but when you start going to those travel blogging events and they meet you and know that you're nice.
Yeah.
That's really how it works. I mean, that's certainly how it worked for me.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think like when I started travel blogging, I went to a meetup in London. I was so nervous. I was so nervous to meet people as well, because I'd kind of like been studying travel bloggers for 6 months at work. So they're a bit like celebrities to me. And then I went to this, I went to a meetup in London, and it just so happened to be the first meetup of, it was like maybe 5 other bloggers, other travel bloggers there. And we just got on really well. So we got a lot of advice off each other, and then also recommended each other for trips when they would come up, if people were looking for other bloggers that were good. So we kind of helped each other. And also when you start going on press trips, other companies and other PR companies see that you've been selected to go on the press trip, and then they might see what work you've done, see what the follow-up is, and then you'll get invited on more press trips. And then all of a sudden you've kind of got this whole network of people that think you're a good person to invite on a press trip. And so you'll get invited on more and more and more, and then you'll get on like their books. And yeah, and so I think once you've gone on like maybe 2 or 3 press trips, then you'll just get invited on more and more, if you've done a good job, obviously.
So that's really interesting, because you've touched on a couple of points there. So in terms of, so like in a positive, if you're a nice person, you're professional and you do your job well, it's really about getting your foot in the door. And then thereafter, it's not necessarily about growing your traffic to XYZ. It's more about proving that you can create content and do good follow-up from a press trip. Because actually, sometimes, I remember Sabina saying this to me once, that companies will value things that you don't even realise, such as, taking a good picture, writing a really good guide to their destination. That is valuable in and of itself.
Yeah,
but then,
definitely.
On the flip side, one of the things that I've seen from working on the other side of things and organising press trips, or certainly selecting bloggers for them, is that sometimes it's about who you know and getting on people's books, and then often that means that maybe someone not so good is kind of hopping around and doing lots of, like, doing the rounds, as it were, if you know what I mean, just because they've done others.
Yeah, I think you won't last though, because I think like the travel blogging industry is very small, the travel PR industry is very small as well, and people talk, and I have heard some horrible stories from PRs about bloggers on press trips. So, you know, they talk to each other, and they've obviously got their bosses to please, and they've got their targets to make, and if they need bloggers that are going to help them reach their targets. So if you're a bit of an idiot, or don't follow up, or you're not a nice person to even hang around with for 4 days, then you're not going to be invited on many more press trips, I think.
I think that's true. Yeah, I think that's true. But I have seen people be a bit of a douchebag and then still manage to, because I've heard those stories too, and sometimes those people are still working a few years later. But I guess, but you are right. Like, it's few and far between, isn't it? And I guess you can't hit all of those things. You can't be a dick, have like not do any follow up, and then also have like crappy stats. You kind of, you can't be all 3 of those and then still be able to work.
Yeah. And there'll be some people as well that have basically just turned into divas because they've been allowed to, and they're still doing well. And then obviously if there's a return on investment in the end, like if they're a bit of an idiot on the press trip, but then they get 1 million readers to their blog, then the company will probably think it's all right and forgive them for being a bit of an idiot on the press trip. I don't know. I think it's just like it's a lot of things that come together to make someone want to invite you on a press trip.
Yeah. But I suppose, on the positive side of things, for any new travel bloggers, I think it's really, really positive to think you don't have to reach some vanity metric. Because there's a lot of advice out there about, you have to hit, and I heard that when I first started travel blogging, like, don't even think about going on a press trip until you've hit this. And I think a lot of that is about people just feeling a bit threatened. I don't think it's about that. I think if you're professional, and actually the episode with Paul and Michael, they said the exact same thing.
There seemed to be a lot of talk at WTM, the World Travel Market that I've just been to, about like working with bloggers and influencers that don't necessarily have the biggest audience, but they've got a good engagement and maybe, as we were saying earlier, like a bit of a niche as well. I went on a press trip last week and I was talking a lot to the PR about who they select to go on press trips, and they were saying that it's definitely not about numbers. It's all about having a strong voice and engagement, and so you can have that with just a few followers. I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. And yeah, for me on my Instagram, I feel like that I can see. Anyway, I'm going to cut that bit out because that's completely pointless. I was just going to talk about Instagram, then I was like, I don't want to talk about Instagram.
I hate
Instagram.
Oh,
let's talk about that though. You hate it.
Oh no.
You don't want to talk about it.
I don't mind, but I hate it. I like Instagram stories though.
I think this is it's a really good topic of conversation because let me go back into it. As a travel blogger, or just as a blogger, as an influencer, I think nowadays people, it kind of comes back to the rules, doesn't it? Or the stupid rules that no one should really believe, is that you should be on Instagram, and you're like, Instagram is not a big thing for you, is it? Not that you don't have a nice Instagram or have a lot of followers, but it's not your focus. No,
I don't really like Instagram, and it really upsets me how it has changed people and travel, and I just really don't like Instagram. At the weekend I was waiting for my friend outside Topshop on Oxford Street, and I was watching people do that kind of iconic photo that I've seen a lot of travel Instagrammers do, where you stand on that little bit of road. Do you know the one I mean?
Yeah.
Stand on the little bit of road. It's like the little bit passing road. But anyway, I saw these girls standing on there, and there was just so many people doing it and taking. It's just so fake. That's what I hate. But I also think when people slag off Instagram, you're probably not following the right people on Instagram, because you don't have to follow those accounts. So,
yeah, definitely. I don't follow any of those accounts, and actually, this is great. Yeah, don't unfollow. Yeah, totally unfollow. Whenever I have I hate Instagram moment, I realise it's because I'm following people that piss me off, and then just
follow.
Just unfollow. Yeah. I was talking to Anna, who is Ardent Wanderess, about how she really hated she didn't hate Instagram, but she was really part of that kind of proliferation of fakeness in a way, because she was using bots to grow her travel blogging account, and then she talked about it and she was like, oh, I was just over it. But she was talking about a press trip that she went on to Budapest, and she had a really, really good time. Really enjoyed it, was with a couple of her friends, but she was really upset because it was really grey and her feed was really colourful. And and she was like, none of these pictures are going to fit in with my feed.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a moment when she was like, this is bullshit. I don't want to do this anymore.
I think some people get a lot of pleasure out of it, but say, like, I'm in a few groups with other bloggers on various platforms, and people just get so upset about their Instagram and whether they're losing followers or whether they're getting the same amount of likes and all this. And I don't know, because I totally know what they mean. I mean, I know what they mean. I know for a fact that I've been looked over for work, because I think it's 6,500 followers on Instagram, which is less than a lot of people. But I know that a lot of people have that whole point of 10,000.
Yeah, for the swipe.
And one of my friends who lived in so there's that. I would want to have that. But there's one of my friends lives in Australia, and she said you don't get invited to events unless you've got 10,000. As a travel blogger, you don't get invited to events unless you've got 10,000. And I don't know, it annoys me, because it's obviously hard, but it's kind of hard in a really tedious way to grow, and I just can't do it. I'd rather write a blog. I'm more of a writer. Yeah. I'm a trained journalist, so I'm more of a writer than I don't know what it takes to win on Instagram.
I don't think any of us do.
I don't have it, whatever it is.
No, I don't either. But
I do really like Instagram stories. And so I would love to get rid of Instagram, but I really like Instagram stories. I like following people. I like doing my own. I just like the instant side of it, and the fact that most people's aren't like all crafted. It's just a glimpse into what you're doing that day. I do really like stories.
Yeah, I like stories too. I like stories for myself, like kind of making stuff for stories, and also really, really love following people. And funnily enough, I don't really look at my kind of feed anymore. I tend to just follow people on their stories.
No, neither do I.
That's kind of what I've noticed.
No, I get sort of like 600 views on a story, so that's 10% of my following. But then I'll get like 100 likes on my feed. I think just people don't look at the feed. Yeah, I don't, because it's just.
But I think also it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy with Instagram, because you don't enjoy it. You're not like sat there kind of looking at other people's posts and liking and commenting. So then,
no, that's what you have to do, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And it only really works in an authentic way if you genuinely like other people's photos and genuinely comment. I mean, obviously, no, that's not completely correct, because you can use bots and grow your following that way. But what I mean by it only really works is it only really works for your mental health if you actually genuinely enjoy liking other people's photos and commenting on them. Otherwise, you just go mad, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I just feel like it hasn't had a positive mental effect on anyone I know. Instagram.
Yeah, I completely agree.
But it's there and everyone uses it, so.
But the good thing is that it's really cool that you know what your limits are. Like you're not about to spend hours every day growing your Instagram just so that you can hit a vanity metric.
Yeah, I tried to do it a few times and it just, don't know. I just feel like they were wasted hours. I'd rather go and travel or write a blog post or make a video. It's just not me doing the Instagram feed.
Do you create video content? You do, don't you?
Yes, I have done and I enjoy it, but it's just another thing that's really time consuming. So it's something that I want to focus on more next year. But for now, I do the odd video here and there.
Because I remember Monica talking about it. I can't remember when. It might have been on the first episode, the first series. Anyway, she was talking about video content, or it might be in the blogger course. I can't remember, but she was saying about outsourcing video content. And I think she might have done that previously. I don't know if she still does, but I think how do you feel about outsourcing the stuff that you really want to get into? But yeah, like it's time consuming. You could definitely earn more money in the time that you edit. You know, that it takes to edit.
I do really like the editing bit though.
Oh, do you?
I do like that. Yeah, I like putting it all together and then knowing that I've done it. I've never outsourced video, but I mean, I do think that outsourcing anything is a good idea if you can find the right person. But it's difficult to find the right person. Right now, it's not for me. But I think if I did it more, I think the key with all of this, with blogging, video, Instagram, whatever, is consistency. And I think that's why my blog has done well, because I'm always, well, not always, but like I do about three blog posts a week, every week. But then with video, I'll do like a video and then it'll be 6 or 7 weeks until I do another one. And then on Instagram, I forget about it for a week. And so the platform doesn't like you, does it? If you're not consistent. So I want to make like a proper schedule for next year of making videos.
How do you maintain the 3 posts a week? Because that is a lot. And your posts aren't like short little listicles.
No, I should probably cut it down so that I can focus on the other things that I've been talking about.
Maybe.
It's just the part of blogging that I really enjoy, is the actual blogging and the actual writing. It's what I've enjoyed from the start. And yeah, when I was younger, I really wanted to be a journalist. So this is kind of this is me being a journalist in 2018.
Yeah, I love that. And probably making way more money than most journalists.
Yeah, maybe.
But how do you do that? How do you keep consistency and produce 3 blog posts a week?
I think, I don't know.
Do you plan it out?
I have so many blog posts that I want to write. Like I have a whole spreadsheet of all these blog posts that I want to write, but I just don't have time to do it. I have so many ideas. Ideas isn't really a problem. I think because I travelled so much, obviously. And I do plan it out, what I want to do. It's always changing, but I have a rough plan of what I want to post every week. And then obviously because I write about festivals and events quite a bit, it's good to have an idea of when you're going to post things to hit peak time for the search.
And also, with... Oh, I forgot what I was going to ask. Sorry. Carry on.
I don't know. What was I saying?
You were saying about how you manage to produce 3 blog posts every week because you've got a lot of ideas. That's not really an issue for you. It's more that you have more ideas than time.
Yeah, basically.
But how do you... I find this really difficult personally. I have a lot of ideas, but sitting down to write the post, I think sometimes I find it... I don't know. Maybe because journalism is now my main kind of source of income. Sometimes I'm like written out when I come to write a blog post.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean by that. So often I will just kind of write everything that I want to write on the page, like if I'm not necessarily in the mood for writing, and then I'll just put everything on the page and then try and come back to it either later or tomorrow or the next day to do it. But I often use time as well, or like I bribe myself. So I just say to myself, right, write everything you can for 15 minutes and then you can have a cup of tea.
Oh, that's such a good idea. I love that.
And then you can do a lot in 15 minutes if you don't get distracted and you're just like, just writing.
I think that's your journalist background though.
Oh.
Well, it might not be, but I think that might be your journalist background because Monica is the same. And when she talks about like typewriting, just get it down and then come back and edit it.
Yeah. I think maybe because when I worked at Hostel Bookers, there was high expectations for me to write a lot every day. So maybe that was good training for me. And yeah, I wrote a lot of blog posts there every day. And yeah, I guess that's just been good. Just write it down and then come back and edit it later, and then you'll be amazed at what you can achieve, I think.
That's a really good tip. And the perfect point to end the podcast on. So thank you very much for being a part of the podcast, first of all.
No worries.
Where can everybody find you online?
So my blog is vickyflipfloptravels.com, and then all the social media just at vickyflipflop.
And you especially love Instagram, so definitely go over to Instagram.
Yeah, go and follow me on Instagram so I can get to 10,000 and then I can stop.
Well, if you're doing that, then please follow me because I'm further behind. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
And you can find me at Lucy Lucraft everywhere. But I mostly hang out on Instagram. You can find old episodes of What She Said over at lucylucraft.com, where you'll also find me chatting about all things blogging, travel, vegan life, and zero waste living too. Lastly, I know everybody asks this and it's a total pain in the ass, but please think about leaving the show a rating and review. It makes a huge difference to getting the show out to new listeners. And for every review you leave, I'll donate £2 to charity. So that's £1 for you and £1 from me. The chosen charity changes each month, so listen out for it in the intro each week. Thanks for listening.